Hello and welcome to Ensigns to the Nations. We have a very special edition this week. Kurt is actually with his brothers and sisters in Fresno, and most of this week's edition will come to you from the Fresno Temple. So they're excited to bring that to you. But before we jump into that, I did want to just have one message. This particular episode, this bit of scriptures is important to me, and I did want to add just a little bit to the discussion this week. A couple of years ago, I was going about my daily business, and I got home and I looked at my wedding ring, and the diamond was missing out of it. And my heart dropped. I had been married for almost 35 years, had the same diamond this whole time, and it was gone. So of course I started searching everywhere. I called the dentist's office, I called my work. My coworkers were crawling around on the floor with flashlights trying to see if they could get a glimmer of the diamond and try to find it. Never found it. But luckily, my stepmother owns a jewelry business, and she was able to replace that diamond with a beautiful one. I'm very happy with how she did it. But it got me thinking about diamonds and the value of them and how they are made. You might not know this, but diamonds are made from pure carbon. That it has to be under certain conditions. It's exposed to extreme heat, 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. And extreme pressure, 725,000 psi. This happens 100 miles below the Earth's surface and takes billions of years. So diamonds are valuable, but they are not easy to come by. It takes a lot of heat and pressure and time to turn them into the beautiful thing that they become. And I really thought about that whole concept with this week's lesson of Joseph and everything that he went through to become who he was, and to be able to save Israel and the 12 tribes. And it was a circumstance that had to be put into place. And I love in Genesis 50:20 where it says, God meant it unto good. The whole scripture says, but as for you, ye thought evil against me. And he's talking to his brothers. They thought they were doing evil when they threw him in the pit and sold him and all of those things. But God meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive. So Kurt and his siblings will be talking more about this at the Fresno Temple, but it was just very special to me, and I wanted to share my thoughts about diamonds and about how sometimes we have to go through trials, but God means it unto good, and we are diamonds in the rough, and we become better and grow with the trials that we're exposed to. So that's all I have to share for today. We'll turn the rest of the episode over to Kurt in Fresno.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Ensigns to the Nations. This is a little different. Here I am. I don't have Allison or the rest of my little family, but I am here in Fresno, California with my brother Darren, his wife Holly, and a couple of the other brothers that are here for a funeral. So we decided we would come to the Fresno California Temple, which is a nice place to be, and it means a lot to us because our dad was in the first temple presidency here when it first was built. So it's very important to us, and it'll be a nice time to walk around this temple and talk about Jesus and the Come Follow Me lesson. So let's get started.
All right.
So this week we are talking about Genesis chapters 42 to 50, or what I call it, Joseph chapter 2, because this is about Joseph of Egypt. You know, last time we talked about Joseph and how he got sold into Egypt by his brothers. This is Joseph, of course, the son of Jacob, or Israel. He's the 11th of the 12 tribes of Israel, and he went through an awful lot of stuff last week, and we talked about how important it was that God was with him, and that made him be a better person and get through all that stuff. So this week we start with Joseph had been he's been made the chief governor, number 2 of Pharaoh there in Egypt, and he's in charge of divvying out all of the food because he correctly said that they were going to have 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. So he's now there, and what happens? His brothers come to him and ask for food. In Genesis chapter 42, verse 1, I think, it's really funny because Jacob says, hey, don't just stand there, do something, because they're starving. They don't have any money, they don't have any food. And so he says, don't just stand there, do something. Get out there and go to Egypt and buy some food, buy some wheat and buy some grain, because they need something. But when they get there, they bow down in front of this very important Egyptian ruler, and they don't know it's Joseph, and they bow down to him. Now, do you guys remember what happened? What happened in Joseph's dream that he had? They bowed down to him.
Yes.
Remember that? He had a dream about the stars and the corn stalks, yes. And they bowed down. It's one of the reasons why they hated him, because he's saying, yeah, you're going to bow down to me, and lo and behold, that's exactly what happened.
Well, he decided to test them.
Yeah. Yeah, so once he saw them, and he decided to test them, and decided that so this whole thing is really a lot about forgiveness and what we can do in order to forgive people who did awful wrong things to us. Well, here he is, finally face to face with his brothers who sold him to Egypt, who were going to kill him, and then they decided that they'd sell him. His life could have been completely different, so he's face to face with these guys, and he could have done anything. He had the power to do anything to these guys, but he didn't. Yeah, he wanted to see, have they changed at all? Because it had been about 13 years. Mm-hmm. And so, no, it'd been more than that, because this is actually the second year of the famine part. So they'd already done 7 years of plenty, and they were getting into the second year of the famine.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah, like 22 years that they haven't seen him. So kind of cool that they were, that he was trying to trick them and test them, because he wasn't speaking their language, but he could understand their language. Yeah. And he's just using interpreters, so they didn't know anything about it, and they could talk about everything, and they didn't know anything about it. And so he says, okay, well, he asks a little bit about them. They say, well, this isn't all of us. We have one brother who is gone, and that's talking about Joseph. They think he's dead. And then they had another brother, their youngest brother is still at home taking care of their dad. Well, you think about Joseph. Here he is, he's the oldest of the two that were born to Rachel, who was, Israel's favorite. And they know how he treated Joseph, so how are they going to treat Benjamin? And so he's worried about Benjamin, and so they say, well, you go back and get your little brother. Here's some food. By the way, don't pay me for it. Just take it, go back, and bring Benjamin back here.
And I'll give you more.
Yeah, and then I'll give you more. And that was part of the test. Have you changed? Or are you still messed up? So they do that. They go home. They come back with Benjamin. They had to convince Dad about it, though, because he did not want this to happen. He already lost Joseph.
Yeah, he was very worried.
Yeah.
That Benjamin would be taken away from him.
Yeah, and so he made Judah promise that he'd take care of him. So Judah did. He said, no, I will take care of him. Don't worry about it. So when they get there, he actually feeds them. They have a meal. And what I read is that that's a big thing in that day, is the meal. And it was sort of like a peace thing. Mm-hmm. And so they're all thinking, well, this guy, he likes us. It's kind of weird that he sat us at this table in birth order, which he did. And they're like, how does he know that? Yeah. And then they come in, and Benjamin's there, and Joseph kind of breaks down. There's 4 or 5 times when it talks about in this lesson about how Joseph wept. And it's kind of nice just because you know how maybe spiritual and emotional he can be. He saw Benjamin, and he had to go away into another room to cry, and then make his face look better. I'm just gonna get back. This is some beautiful grounds here at the Fresno Temple. So then what's the big test?
big test is where he decides he's going to throw them in jail.
Yeah.
He accused them of something.
Right. He plants a cup in the bag of Benjamin.
That's right.
And then he sends his guys over to him and says, and they catch him and they bring him back and they say, this guy stole this silver cup.
and they protected Benjamin and said,
yeah.
no, take me,
Right,
take
right.
me.
Judah in particular.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because Judah is also the guy, when Joseph was sold into slavery to the Ishmaelites, he's the one who suggested it. Which is also interesting because, so Joseph in all of this is a type of Christ. And they talk a lot about that.
Well, it is. There's this reference to the meaning behind, Christ coming into this world as well. And
he's a favorite son, right?
Yep.
He comes to this world and he has to go through things in order for him to save all of us.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happens to Joseph.
Pre-existence, he had his brother who was Satan, who hated him, and all those things too. And anyways,
and they both were sold for 20 pieces of silver by a guy named Judah or Judas.
Yeah.
So interesting, yeah. Judah says, no, take me instead. And that's kind of when Joseph says, yeah, okay, I believe them now.
Guys,
they have changed. The other thing that was really neat, because he had said some stuff, Joseph did, and he overheard his brothers talking. His brothers were like, I don't...
Over the steps.
He says, like, they're talking about, they still think, they're still feeling guilty about what they did to Joseph. So again, this is 22 years later, and they're still feeling guilty about it. Mm-hmm. And they know that they did wrong. Also, Reuben, who's the oldest, he says, I told you guys not to do that. So this is the conversation that he's overhearing. Mm-hmm. I told you not to do that. That's the first time Joseph ever knew that.
Yeah.
That his oldest brother Reuben was not a part of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of cool. So he's finding out a lot of stuff, and he hears that they're very guilty 22 years later. And so that must mean that they've been thinking about it for a long time, really. Anytime something bad happens, they might say, well, this is God punishing us for what we did to Joseph. So he says, okay. He sends all the people out, all his servants and everybody out of the room. And then he says in Hebrew now, he's speaking to them, I am Joseph. I am Joseph and I'm your brother. And they're like, what? They can't even talk because
they can't talk.
They don't know what in the world's going on, which I would understand. They haven't seen him in such a long time, and there's no way they would think that this is the guy that we didn't like so much, prancing around in his little coat.
Well, one of the interesting things about the lesson is that one of the questions in there that it asks to ponder about is, what if Joseph did not forgive?
Yeah.
Did not forgive his brothers? What would the turnout have been? Well, it would have been complete chaos. It would have just thrown him into jail. None of the blessings that came to that family would have been come true.
The Abrahamic covenant would have stopped
right there,
because Israel would have not continued on. Yeah.
So it's really interesting, and it makes you think about how important it was for Joseph just to forgive his brothers for this thing that they did. Yeah. They sold him.
An awful thing that they did.
And it made their father believe that he was dead.
Yeah.
How important is it to us to forgive?
Yeah, and specifically about family. This was his family. When we get done things that are wrong to us by our family members, and there's tons of them, right? I mean, I have a brother, Jason, who has wronged me so many times, and just kidding. That's Jason. Families certainly have their share of, I know a lot of families who they don't get along with their brothers and sisters, they don't get along with their parents.
Yeah.
To forgive is to forget.
Something will happen, they won't talk to them for years and years and years.
Oh yeah. One of the things that Joseph says right at the beginning when he says, I am Joseph, he says, "Come to me." And that's something that that other people have picked up on. Come to me is one way of when we forgive people. It's not just I say I forgive you, but come to me. We will now have more of a relationship. You and me can do things together. We can talk more about stuff. It's not just all I forgive you, but it's action and doing that thing.
And
that's
how
important.
also
It's more
that's
than that, isn't it? Because I think you can forgive. It seems like it's an extension of forgiveness. You can forgive, but
Right.
you don't necessarily have to go that extra
Right.
length
Yeah.
to
also
embrace the person.
yeah, when you think about come to me, you think about, well, who else says that to us?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Come to me. Why does he say that? Well, because we know that we have to go through Christ to get back to the Father. And we also know that Christ also atoned for all our sins. And that's the other big reason why we must forgive others, because he's taken upon all that.
Yeah.
And without us actually acknowledging that and taking advantage of forgiveness and the atonement, we're just, doing that as a dishonesty to Christ himself.
Right. Yeah. Another important story about forgiveness in this lesson is, so after all that happened, Joseph says, "Go back home and tell Dad that I'm alive and what's going on." And so he does. So think about what Israel is feeling now. For 22 years, he thought his favorite son was gone. And now he finds out that he's alive and that it was other sons who got rid of him. So he's got to forgive them for what they've done, and he's got to forget about all that stuff and just move on. And that's another big part about forgiveness, is forgetting about it. There's a great verse in Doctrine and Covenants 58 that talks about if we repent, that the Lord forgives us and forgets all about it. We'll never remember it anymore. And so forgetting about those things that happen to us are certainly important. Well, this is a great story about forgiveness and really family stuff. I also listened to this podcast, and this guy was talking about how whole first book in the Old Testament, Genesis, is all about families. And it is. We talked about husband and wife relationships with Adam and Eve. We've talked about other husband and wife with Abraham and Sarah and all this. We've talked about brothers' relationship with Esau and Jacob.
Very challenging family relationships.
Yes, all these family relationships. And yeah, it wasn't just the perfect ones,
No,
these prophets
in fact,
and
they were
everybody.
anything but for the
Yeah,
most part.
yeah. And how much that, and that's how he leads off in the Old Testament. Families are important. Figure out, because I'm going to give you some good examples and some bad examples and how to get through them all. And this is a wonderful way to, if you've got, all these brothers and sisters and other people in your life, and you really want to have celestial families, then you've got to forgive, you've got to love, you've got to forget, you've got to do all this stuff.
It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, but it'll be worth it. And it was worth it at the end. In this lesson, Jacob dies, and he gets taken back to his homeland and buried next to his wife. And then at the very end, Joseph dies as well. But they died in this happy ending. They are now in the promised land. Of course, we know we're going to have some more little problems with the Israelites in the next few chapters, in the next few books. But again, the thing that runs throughout this whole thing is, if we are walking with God, God will walk with us, and he can make impossible things work. So, well, it's been fun here in Fresno, California, where it's like, 70 degrees. It's awesome. Beautiful area, beautiful times. It's been nice, and maybe we'll come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah. So join us next time on, we all say this together, Ensigns to the Nations.
Let's do that one more time.
Okay. Join us next time on Ensigns to the Nations.